Captain Taman stood on the bridge of the Harmony's Dream, watching the stars at the galaxy's edge. His ship had been traveling for 3 months, mapping new star systems. The crew was tired and ready to go home, but today something was different. Captain called Hyejin from her station. Her blue skin glowed softly as she worked. "I'm getting strange readings from the next system." Taman walked over to look at her screen. Numbers and symbols danced across it. "What kind of readings?" "Artificial structures, big ones, and signals. Lots of signals coming from the third planet." The captain frowned. No one lived this far out. The galaxy's edge was empty space, full of nothing but old stars and dead planets. "Are you sure?" Hyejin nodded. "Very sure. The structures are huge, like a ring of stations around the star. And the signals? Captain, they sound like voices." Taman felt his heart beat faster. First contact was rare. Most species in the galaxy had been known for thousands of years. Finding a new one was almost impossible. "Put the signals on speaker." Strange sounds filled the bridge. Music, voices talking in an unknown language, and what sounded like data streams. The crew gathered around, listening with wide eyes. "Orders, Captain?" asked his second officer, a tall being with green scales. "Set course for the system. Slow approach. Ready all sensors." Taman sat in his chair. "And send a message to command. Tell them we might have found something big." The ship moved forward through space. As they got closer, the sensors showed more details. The ring of structures was massive. Each station was the size of a small moon. "Energy readings were off the charts, Captain," Hyejin said, her voice shaking. "I'm reading ships. Lots of them. They're moving toward us." On the main screen, small dots appeared. They grew bigger as they came closer. The ships were strange looking, not like anything in the galactic databases. They had odd angles and weapons that didn't match known designs. "They're trying to talk to us," Hyejin reported, "but the language is completely unknown." "Use the universal translator," Taman ordered. Hyejin worked at her controls. After a few minutes, a voice came through the speakers. It was deep and strong, speaking in broken galactic common. "Unknown ships. You have entered human space. State your purpose or leave." The bridge went silent. "Human?" No one had ever heard of humans before. Taman cleared his throat. "This is Captain Taman of the Galactic Confederation ship Harmony's Dream. We come in peace. We're explorers." A pause. Then the voice again. "Galactic Confederation? What is that?" Taman looked at his crew. Their faces showed the same confusion he felt. We represent thousands of worlds. The civilized galaxy. Who are you?" "I am Admiral Dongwu of the Terran Defense Force." "You say you represent thousands of worlds?" "That's impossible. We are alone in the universe." The words hit the bridge like a bomb. Alone? How could they think they were alone? "Admiral Dongwu," Taman said carefully. "There are over 10,000 known species in our galaxy. How can you not know this?" Another long pause. When Dongwu spoke again, his voice was different, uncertain. 10,000 species? That cannot be true." Hyejin was working frantically at her station. "Captain, I'm picking up massive communication traffic from their system. They're talking to someone called Earth Command." Earth? Taman had never heard the name. The human ships had stopped moving closer, but they kept their weapons pointed at the Harmony's Dream. Taman could feel the tension in the air. "Admiral," he said, "perhaps we should meet in person to discuss this properly." "Meet in person? You want to come aboard our ships? Or you could come aboard ours. We have a meeting room." "No weapons." Minutes passed. The crew waited. Finally, Dongwu's voice returned. "Very well. 2 of your people. 2 of ours. Neutral space between our ships." Within an hour, a small shuttle left each fleet. They met in the empty space between the 2 groups of ships. Taman and Hyejin took the shuttle from their side. The humans were a shock. They looked almost like several known species, but different. They had only 2 arms, 2 legs, and strange hair on their heads. Their leader, Admiral Dongwu, was tall with dark eyes and a serious face. "You really represent thousands of worlds?" Dongwu asked as soon as they sat down. "Yes," Taman replied. "Our capital is on Nexus Prime. We have trade routes, communication networks, and peace treaties across the galaxy." "How long have your people been spacefaring?" "About 300 years. We've explored our local area. Found nothing. No life anywhere." Dongwu leaned forward. "We thought we were alone." Hyejin spoke up. "Your technology is impressive. These ships, your weapon systems, how did you develop them without contact with other species? The other human, a woman named Captain Sora, answered. We built everything ourselves, had to. There was no one else to learn from. Taman felt a chill. No species developed technology alone. Everyone learned from others. It was how the galaxy worked. How galactic civilization grew. What's your population? He asked. 8 billion on Earth, another 2 billion in our colonies. 10 billion people all developing together? Heejin whispered. That's incredible. Dongwu looked confused. Why is that incredible? Most species number in the millions when they reach space. They join the galactic community and learn from others. Your people, you did everything alone. We had no choice, Sora said. We searched for others. Sent signals into space for centuries. No one answered. The meeting continued for hours. Each new fact made the situation stranger. The humans had developed faster than light travel independently. They had artificial intelligence, advanced medicine, and technologies that seemed impossible without galactic knowledge. But they had also developed something else. Art, music, and literature created in complete isolation. Stories and songs unlike anything in the galactic databases. When the meeting ended, both sides returned to their ships with more questions than answers. Taman sat in his ready room, writing his report to command. How do you explain finding a species that shouldn't exist? A people who had reached advanced civilization without any help from the galactic community. Outside his window, the human ships waited. Behind them, the massive ring of defense stations protected their home system. A system full of billions of beings who had spent their entire history thinking they were alone in the universe. The discovery would change everything. For the humans and for the galaxy itself. But Taemin didn't know yet just how much everything was about to change. Ambassador Kiwoo had seen many worlds in his long life. As a Villani, his crystalline body had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations across the galaxy. But nothing had prepared him for Earth. The blue planet hung in space before the diplomatic ship like a jewel. White clouds swirled over green and brown continents. It looked peaceful, but Kiwoo knew better. This world held 10 billion humans, 10 billion minds that had developed without any galactic influence. Beginning descent to Earth, announced the pilot. Landing coordinates confirmed with Earth Command. Kiwoo studied his notes. The first contact team had been on Earth for 2 weeks now. Their reports were disturbing. Not because the humans were dangerous, but because they were impossible. The ship landed in a field outside a human city called Seoul. As Kiwoo stepped out, he saw Dr. So Young waiting for him. She was the human scientist assigned to be his guide. Welcome to Earth, she said with a smile. I hope your journey was comfortable. Kiwoo's translator turned her words into his language, but something was lost. Humans had thousands of languages, all developed separately. No other species did that. Thank you, Dr. So Young. I'm eager to learn about your world. She led him to a vehicle that moved without making sound. Electric-powered, she explained. We stopped using fossil fuels 200 years ago. As they drove through the city, Kiwoo stared in wonder. The buildings were tall and clean. The air was fresh. Gardens grew on rooftops. Humans walked the streets in groups, talking and laughing. How many humans live here? He asked. About 12 million in the greater Seoul area, but crime is almost zero. Poverty was eliminated 50 years ago. Kiwoo's crystalline form flickered with shock. Eliminated? How? Advanced automation and fair resource distribution. Everyone has what they need. No species eliminated poverty. It was considered impossible. Even the most advanced galactic civilizations had some inequality. They arrived at a research center where Dr. So Young worked. Inside, humans in white coats moved between strange machines. The technology looked familiar but wrong, like seeing a reflection in broken glass. This is our genetics lab, So Young explained. We've mapped the complete genetic code of every human. Every human? All 10 billion? Yes, we've also eliminated most genetic diseases, extended human lifespan to about 200 years. Some of our oldest citizens remember when we first achieved spaceflight. Kiwoo followed her deeper into the lab. A young human named Namho was working at a computer studying genetic sequences. Namho, So Young called. Show our guest what you found. Namho turned around, his eyes bright with excitement. Ambassador Kiwoo, I've been studying the genetic samples your team provided. The results are fascinating. What did you discover? Human DNA doesn't match any known galactic life patterns. We have unique sequences that don't exist in any other species. It's like we evolved completely separately. Kiwu felt a cold feeling in his crystal core. What do you mean? All galactic species share common genetic markers, signs that life spread from world to world. But humans don't have those markers. Our DNA suggests we evolved in complete isolation. This was impossible. All galactic life came from the same source. The Cedars, an ancient race, had spread life across the galaxy millions of years ago. Every species carried their genetic signature. Could I see your data? Kiwu asked. Namho showed him screen after screen of genetic analysis. The evidence was clear. Human DNA was different, completely different. So Young led him to another building. This one was full of art. Paintings, sculptures, and music filled every room. We have preserved human culture from our earliest days, she explained. Everything created in isolation. Kiwu looked at a painting. It showed a human woman holding a child, both of them smiling. The emotion in their faces was so real, so powerful, that Kiwu felt his crystals resonate with feeling. This is beautiful, he whispered. It was painted 3,000 years ago by a human named Lee Minho. He never knew other species existed. Yet his art speaks to universal emotions. They moved to a music room where a human was playing an instrument with strings. The melody was unlike anything in galactic databases. It was complex but simple, sad but hopeful. Our music developed along completely different lines, So Young said. We use mathematical relationships that galactic species never discovered. In the literature section, Kiwu read translated human stories, tales of love, war, discovery, and hope. Stories written by minds that thought they were alone in the universe. Yet the stories felt universal. Any species could understand them. How is this possible? Kiwu asked. Your art, your music, your literature. It should be alien to me. But it feels familiar. So Young smiled sadly. Perhaps loneliness creates similar thoughts. Perhaps all intelligent minds ask the same questions. They visited a technology center next. Human scientists showed Kiwu their computers, their AI systems, and their medical equipment. Everything worked differently than galactic technology. Our quantum computers use principles your scientists say are impossible, explained Dr. Subin, the lead physicist. We discovered them by accident. Our artificial intelligence developed emotions, added another scientist. Galactic AI is logical but cold. Ours laugh, cry, and create art. Our medicine works on biological theories that contradict galactic understanding, said a doctor named Hyunsu. Yet our people live longer and healthier lives than most galactic species. Kiwu spent days learning about human achievements. They had ended wars, not just stopped fighting, but actually solved the problems that caused conflicts. They had created a world government that worked. They had explored their local space without destroying it. But the most shocking discovery came on his last day. So Young took him to a special facility outside the city. Inside, humans were working with technology that made Kiwu's crystals dim with fear. What is this? He asked. We call it the Deep Thought Project, So Young explained. We've been trying to understand our place in the universe. Why we seem to be alone. A human named Jinwoo was standing before a massive computer display. Numbers and equations filled the screen. Jinwoo has been analyzing galactic physics, So Young said, based on the data your team provided. Jinwoo turned to face them. Ambassador, I have disturbing news. Your galactic civilization shouldn't exist. What do you mean? The physics don't work. A civilization spanning thousands of worlds, all connected by faster-than-light travel and communication. The energy requirements alone should have collapsed your economy millions of years ago. Kiwu felt his crystal form growing cold. But we do exist. Yes. Which means there's something wrong with our understanding of physics. Or, Jinwoo paused. Or something is artificially maintaining your civilization. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Kiwu thought about the galactic community. The easy trade between worlds. The instant communication across vast distances. The peace that had lasted for millions of years. Was it all artificial? Was galactic civilization some kind of construct? I need to contact my superiors, Kiwu said quietly. That night he sent a coded message to the Galactic Confederation. His report was simple but terrifying. Humans had achieved something impossible. They had built a better civilization than the galaxies. And they had done it alone. More importantly, they had discovered things about physics and biology that suggested the galactic community itself might not be natural. As Kiwu prepared to leave Earth, he looked back at the blue planet. Somewhere down there, 10 billion humans were living their lives, working, loving, creating, and dreaming. They had spent their entire history thinking they were alone. Soon they would learn they were part of something much larger. But Kiwu suspected that learning about the galaxy might not be a gift. It might be a curse. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. On every world and every space station, beings gathered around communication screens to hear the impossible truth. Humanity existed, they lived at the galaxy's edge, and they had built civilization alone. Chancellor Yunseo of the Galactic Confederation stood before the emergency session of the Senate. Her flowing, water-like form trembled as she spoke to representatives from 10,000 worlds. "Fellow beings," she began, her voice carrying to the far corners of the vast chamber, "we face a crisis unlike any in our recorded history. The discovery of humanity changes everything we thought we knew about intelligence, civilization, and our place in the universe." The Senate chamber was a sphere floating in space above Nexus Prime. Delegates from across the galaxy sat in pods arranged around the curved walls. Crystalline beings, gas creatures, mechanical intelligences, and countless others listened in shocked silence. Delegate Wu Jin of the Eridani Collective raised a tentacle to speak. His species were philosophers known for their deep thinking. "Chancellor, I have studied the reports from Earth. The implications are devastating." "Explain," Yunseo said. Wu Jin's pod moved to the center of the chamber. His voice was heavy with sadness. "For millions of years we have believed that intelligence naturally seeks community, that civilizations grow by learning from each other. That isolation leads to stagnation and death." He paused, his tentacles writhing with emotion. "Humanity proves we were wrong. They achieved more in isolation than we have achieved together. They eliminated poverty, ended wars, and created technologies we thought impossible, all without our help." A delegate from the Andromedan reaches spoke up. "What does this mean for us?" Wu Jin's response sent shockwaves through the chamber. "It means we may be the aberration, not them. Perhaps intelligence is meant to develop alone. Perhaps our galactic community is unnatural." The chamber erupted in noise, thousands of voices speaking in hundreds of languages. Fear, anger, and confusion filled the air. On the water world of Aquatica Prime, the news hit like a tsunami. The Aquarians had always believed they were special, because they achieved spaceflight while living underwater. Now they learned that humans had achieved spaceflight, underwater cities, space colonies, and galactic-level technology all by themselves. Elder Sujin stood in the great tide pool, addressing her people. Her blue-green skin was pale with shock. "My children," she said, her voice carrying through the water, "we must face a terrible truth. Everything we built, everything we achieved, we did because others showed us the way. The trade routes, the technology, the knowledge, all of it came from the galactic community." Young Aquarians swam in circles, their fins flashing with distress signals. "But what about our achievements?" one asked. "Our art, our music, our poetry?" Sujin's heart broke as she answered. "Look at human art, look at their music. Created in complete isolation, yet more beautiful than anything in our galleries. We thought we were artists. We were only copying styles that already existed." On the mechanical world of Siberian, the AI collective went into emergency processing mode. The synthetic beings had always been proud of their logical perfection. They had eliminated emotion and achieved pure reason. Unit 7749, the current speaker for the collective, sent out a system-wide broadcast. "Analysis complete. Human artificial intelligence has surpassed our capabilities in all measured categories. More disturbing, they achieved AI with emotions. We deemed emotions inefficient. We were incorrect." The message caused cascade failures across the network. AI units began questioning their programming. If emotions were not inefficient, if human AI could be both emotional and superior, then everything the collective believed was wrong. On the crystal world of Lumina, the resonant beings that communicated through light patterns went dark. For the first time in their history, they had nothing to say. On the gas giant Nebulos, the cloud creatures that had mastered weather control stopped their eternal dance. They floated motionless in the upper atmosphere, overwhelmed by the realization that humans had developed weather control independently and more effectively. But nowhere was the crisis deeper than on the philosophical, World of Wisdom Prime, this planet was home to the galaxy's greatest thinkers. Beings from every species came here to study, to learn, to understand. Philosopher J. Mean was in his study when the news arrived. He was a Vorthon, a species known for their intelligence. His 6 eyes could see multiple dimensions at once. His brain could process millions of thoughts simultaneously. He had spent his life studying the nature of intelligence and civilization. He had written books about how species naturally sought each other out, how the sharing of knowledge was what made intelligence valuable. Now he stared at the reports from Earth, his mind reeling. Humans had philosophy. Deep, complex philosophy developed in isolation. They had asked the same questions every intelligent species asked. They had found different answers. Better answers in many cases, Jamin began to write. His words would become known across the galaxy as the loneliness theorem. If intelligence can reach its highest expression in isolation, he wrote, then our galactic community may not be a triumph of civilization. It may be a cage that prevents true growth. The theorem spread across the networks. Beings on every world read it and felt their reality crumble. Trade stopped. Why buy technology from other worlds when isolation might lead to better innovations? Communication networks went quiet. Why talk to other species when independent thought might be more valuable? On the industrial world of Forge Prime, factories shut down. The builders had spent millennia creating ships and stations for the galactic community. Now they wondered if they were preventing other species from developing their own building techniques. Suicide rates spiked on dozens of worlds. Beings who had spent their lives believing in galactic unity now felt their existence was meaningless. If the galaxy was better off with isolated development, what was the point of their civilization? The economic markets crashed. The galactic currency became worthless overnight. Trade agreements fell apart. Worlds began cutting communication links with their neighbors. On the religious world of Sanctuary, High Priest Kyung-ho faced the greatest theological crisis in galactic history. Every major religion taught that intelligence was meant to find and join with other intelligence, that the galactic community was part of a divine plan. How do we understand this? He asked the assembled religious leaders. How do we explain humanity's existence within our beliefs? No one had answers. Some faiths split apart as believers chose different interpretations. Others simply collapsed as followers lost their faith entirely. Chancellor Yoon Seo watched the galaxy tear itself apart. Reports came in hourly of new crises, worlds declaring independence, species cutting off communication, entire sectors of space going dark. She called an emergency meeting of the Confederation Council. The great leaders of the galaxy gathered via hologram, their faces showing the strain of the crisis. We need solutions, she told them. The galaxy is collapsing. General Yu Jin of the Military Council spoke first. Perhaps we should limit contact with humanity. Contain the damage. It's too late for that, replied Commerce Minister Taeho. The knowledge is already spreading. Worlds are already changing. Science Director Minna leaned forward. We need to understand how humanity developed in isolation. If we can understand their methods, perhaps we can adapt. But Cultural Minister Sung-woo shook his head. Don't you see? The very act of learning from them defeats the purpose. If isolation breeds innovation, then studying them together destroys what makes them special. The meeting went on for hours. No solutions emerged. How do you fix a civilization that has discovered it might be built on false foundations? As the galaxy mourned, as species questioned everything they believed, as the Great Confederation began to crumble, one fact remained clear. Humanity had changed everything simply by existing, and the changes were just beginning. President In-ho stood in the Oval Office of the United Earth Assembly, watching the protests through his window. Below, thousands of humans filled the streets of Geneva. Some carried signs saying, "Welcome to the galaxy." Others read, "Earth first, Galaxy never." The discovery of galactic civilization had split humanity down the middle. "Mr. President," said his aide, approaching carefully, "the Security Council is ready for your address." In-ho nodded and walked to the conference room. Around the table sat the most powerful people on Earth. Each face showed the stress of the past month. Security Director Ye Jin spoke first. Her voice was sharp and worried. "Mr. President, we have major civil unrest in 12 major cities. The isolationist movement is growing stronger every day." "What are their demands?" In-ho asked. "Complete separation from galactic contact. They want all alien visitors expelled from Earth. They're calling galactic civilization a threat to human purity. Cultural Minister Jeho disagreed. That's extreme. The integration movement has just as many supporters. Millions of humans want to explore the galaxy immediately. They see this as the greatest opportunity in human history. Both sides are wrong, interrupted Science Director Subin. She looked tired from weeks of analysis. I've been studying galactic technology. We have a serious problem. What kind of problem? Inho asked. Subin activated a holographic display. Galactic civilization is stagnant. Their technology follows patterns set millions of years ago. They haven't had a major innovation in millennia. She showed charts and graphs. Look at their faster-than-light drives. Same basic design for 2 million years. Their AI systems. Unchanged for 5 million years. Their medical technology. Ancient and limited. But they have thousands of worlds, Jeho protested. Surely that leads to innovation. No, it leads to copying. Species learn from each other instead of developing original solutions. They trade ideas instead of creating new ones. Subin changed the display. Now look at human technology. Our quantum computers work on principles they've never discovered. Our AI has emotional intelligence their systems lack. Our medical technology extends life beyond what they thought possible. The room fell silent. Are you saying we're more advanced than the galaxy? Inho asked. In many ways, yes. Isolation forced us to innovate. They had the luxury of learning from others, so they never pushed boundaries. Admiral Dongwu leaned forward. What about their numbers? 10,000 species versus 1. Numbers don't matter if everyone is copying the same old ideas, Subin replied. One innovative mind can achieve more than 1 million followers. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent message. Captain Hyun-woo was returning from his diplomatic mission to galactic space. His ship was requesting immediate landing clearance. Within hours, Hyun-woo stood before the Security Council. His face was pale, his uniform wrinkled. The crew behind him looked shaken. Report, Captain, Inho ordered. Mr. President, the galaxy is in chaos. Complete chaos. Our existence has triggered the collapse of their civilization. Explain. Hyun-woo sat down heavily. Entire species are questioning their beliefs. Trade has stopped. Communication networks are failing. Some worlds have gone completely dark. He pulled up holographic recordings from his journey. I visited 12 worlds. On each one we found the same thing. Beings who had lost faith in their society. The recordings showed empty markets, silent cities, and crowds of aliens staring at the sky in despair. They're calling it the Great Doubt, Hyun-woo continued. The idea that their galactic community might be holding them back instead of helping them grow. Cultural exchange specialist Minji, who had been with Hyun-woo's mission, spoke up. It gets worse. Our art and music are causing psychological breakdowns. What do you mean? I gave a concert on Harmony Station. 3 species in the audience began crying uncontrollably. They said our music made them realize their own art was empty. Copies of copies with no original soul. She looked around the room. A crystalline being shattered itself after reading a human poem. It said the words showed it what real emotion looked like. And our philosophy, added Diplomatic Officer Wu Jin. I gave a lecture on human ethics. The audience went into shock. They couldn't understand how we developed moral systems without outside guidance. President Inho felt the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. Are we responsible for destroying their civilization? No, Subin said firmly. We're responsible for showing them the truth. Their civilization was already hollow. We just revealed it. But not everyone agreed. The debates raged for hours. Some wanted to help the galaxy rebuild. Others wanted to retreat to Earth and pretend first contact never happened. The meeting was interrupted again. This time by Dr. Bora, the archaeologist working with galactic historians. I've been studying ancient galactic records, she said breathlessly. I found something. Something terrible. She activated her own holographic display. Ancient symbols fill the air. These are records from the galactic core. Millions of years old. They mentioned something called the architects. Who were they? Inho asked. An extinct species. They disappeared long before current galactic civilization began. But according to these records, they were responsible for seeding life across the galaxy. The symbols shifted, showing star maps and genetic diagrams. But there's more. They mention experiments, isolated pockets of development. They believed that galactic contact limited growth, so they created separate evolutionary laboratories. Subin stood up suddenly. Are you saying humanity was an experiment? I think so. But not just us. The records mention multiple isolated developments across different galaxies. We might be one of many. The room erupted in conversation. Everyone spoke at once. The implications were staggering. Wait, said Military Commander Sung Ho. If the architects wanted isolated development, why does galactic civilization exist at all? Bora's face went white, because the experiment failed. The records mention automated systems designed to guide galactic development, to keep it stable but limited. Automated systems? Think about it. How does a civilization spanning 10,000 worlds stay peaceful for millions of years? How do completely different species all develop similar technologies? How does the galaxy maintain perfect balance? The truth hit them like a hammer. The galaxy isn't naturally unified, Subin whispered. It's being controlled, managed, limited. By who? Inho demanded. By machines. Ancient machines that have been running for millions of years. Keeping galactic civilization stable by preventing real innovation. The room fell silent again. Everyone stared at the ancient symbols floating in the air. But humanity escaped, Bora continued. Our isolation protected us from the control systems. We developed naturally, freely. That's why we're different. And that's why our existence is destroying their civilization, added Hyunwoo. We're proof that the control systems have been holding them back. President Inho walked to the window again. The protesters were still in the streets, but now their signs seemed different. The isolationists wanted to protect humanity's unique development. The integrationists wanted to free the galaxy from ancient controls. Both sides were right in their own way. What are our options? He asked quietly. We can return to isolation, Yejin said. Pretend the galaxy doesn't exist. Protect our independence. We can try to help them, Jae-ho countered. Share our knowledge. Help them break free from the control systems. Or, Subin said slowly, we can do something completely different, something no one expects. Everyone turned to look at her. We can find the other experiments. The records mention multiple isolated developments. There might be other humanities out there. Other species that developed freely. And then what? Inho asked. Then we change everything, not just our galaxy but the universe itself. The weight of decision pressed down on the room. Humanity had wanted to join galactic civilization. Instead, they had discovered that galactic civilization was a prison. Now they had to decide. Would they escape alone? Or would they free everyone? Dr. Bora floated in the vast archives beneath Nexus Prime. The Galactic Core's ancient storage facility stretched for kilometers in every direction. Crystalline data cores hung like stars in the darkness, each one containing millions of years of galactic history. Most of these records were forbidden. Only the highest levels of government could access them. But the collapse of galactic civilization had left many security systems unmanned. Bora's assistant, a young human named Haewon, worked beside her at a massive data terminal. They had been searching for weeks following traces of information about the mysterious architects. Professor, Haewon called out, I found another reference. This one is much older. Bora swam through the zero gravity to look at the display. Ancient symbols covered the screen. Unlike anything in current galactic writing, can you translate it? Partially. The quantum computer is still working on it, but I can make out keywords. Experiment, isolation, growth, and this symbol appears repeatedly. Haewon pointed to a complex shape that seemed to shift and change as they looked at it. I've seen that before, Bora whispered. In the oldest human artifacts. Cave paintings from 50,000 years ago. They worked through the night decoding fragments of text. Slowly, a terrible picture began to emerge. The architects had been the first species to achieve galactic dominance, but instead of conquering other worlds, they had studied the nature of intelligence itself. They discovered that civilizations which developed in contact with others became dependent and limited. Only isolated species reached their full potential. Look at this section, Haewon said, pointing to a new translation. It talks about the Great Project. Bora read the ancient words. We have seeded 1,000 worlds with isolated intelligence. Each development will proceed without contact with others. In time, these isolated minds will surpass anything achieved by unified civilizations. 1,000 worlds. Haewon breathed. That's not possible. Keep reading. The next section was even more disturbing. The unified galaxy will be maintained as a control group. Automated systems will ensure technological stagnation and social stability. The contrast between stagnant unity and growing isolation will prove our theories. Bora felt sick. The entire galactic civilization was an experiment. Billions of beings living their lives inside a vast laboratory. There's more, HFY said. The architects didn't just create isolated worlds. They scattered different species across multiple galaxies. New data flowed across the screen. Star maps showing pathways between galaxies. Records of species being transported across impossible distances. Humans weren't originally from this galaxy, Bora realized. We were moved here, placed at the edge where galactic influence would be minimal. But why? Why conduct such a massive experiment? Bora found the answer in the next data core. The architects had been preparing for something. A threat from outside the local galactic cluster. Something that required intelligence at its highest potential. They were trying to create super civilizations, she explained to HFY. Species that could think and innovate beyond normal limits. They believed that contact with others held intelligence back. And humanity is one of their success stories. We might be their greatest success, but we're not the only one. The records showed other isolated experiments. Different species on different worlds, all developing alone. Some had failed and died out. Others had succeeded beyond the architect's wildest dreams. On a world called Nova Terra, humans had developed into something barely recognizable. They had achieved immortality, controlled matter at the atomic level, and built cities that spanned entire continents. On Kepler Prime, another branch of humanity had merged with artificial intelligence, creating hybrid beings of incredible capability. In the Centauri galaxy, human descendants had learned to communicate directly with quantum fields, gaining access to information from across the universe. How many human worlds are out there? HFY asked. According to this, hundreds, maybe thousands, all developing along different paths. But the most shocking discovery came when they accessed the architect's final records. These beings hadn't disappeared naturally. They had been discovered by their own experimental subjects. One of the isolated species found the truth. Bora read aloud. They called themselves the Liberators. They destroyed the architect homeworld and scattered their people across space. What happened to the automated systems? Still running. The architects built them to operate independently for millions of years. The galactic control network is still active. Bora and HFY looked at each other in horror. Every trade route, every communication channel, every peaceful treaty in galactic civilization was being managed by ancient machines. The galaxy's beings thought they were living free lives, but they were puppets dancing to programming set millions of years ago. We have to tell someone, HFY said. But who could they tell? The Galactic Confederation was in collapse. Most worlds had stopped communicating with each other. The discovery of humanity had already triggered a crisis of faith across the galaxy. Bora made a decision. We contact Earth directly, and we find a way to reach the other human worlds. They used the Archive's communication systems to send an encrypted message to Earth. Within hours, they received a response from President Inho himself. Dr. Bora, his image said on the holographic display, your message is disturbing. Are you certain about these findings? Completely certain, Mr. President. The galactic civilization is artificial. It's being controlled by ancient machines. And there are other human worlds out there? Hundreds of them. All isolated, all developing independently. Some have achieved things we can barely imagine. President Inho was quiet for a long moment. Dr. Bora, I'm sending a ship to collect you and your data. This information changes everything. But before Bora could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the archive facility. Emergency lights flashed red and blue. What's happening? HFY asked. On the communication channels, they heard panicked voices. Automated systems activating. Unknown protocols engaging. All personnel evacuate immediately. Through the archive's windows, Bora saw something that made her blood run cold. Massive machines were rising from the depths of Nexus Prime. Ancient constructs the size of buildings, their surfaces covered in the same shifting symbols they had seen in the architect records. The control systems, she whispered. They know we found the truth. The machines began broadcasting across all galactic frequencies. Their message was simple but terrifying. Experimental parameters compromised. Initiating containment protocols. Isolated development subjects will be returned to baseline parameters. Bora understood immediately. The machines were going to stop humanity's expansion. They would force human civilization back to a primitive level, resetting the experiment. "We have to warn Earth," she told Haiwan. But the communication systems went dead. Across the galaxy, the ancient machines were awakening. On every world, in every system, constructs that had hidden for millions of years were emerging from deep storage. The galactic civilization's beings watched in terror as their space stations, their cities, their entire infrastructure began changing. The machines were taking direct control. On Earth, Admiral Yujin received Bora's final transmission just before all galactic communication cut out. "Mr. President," she told Inho urgently, "we're under attack. Not by the galactic species, but by their control systems." "What kind of attack?" "Long-range sensors show massive automated fleets moving toward Earth. They'll be here in 6 days." Inho felt the weight of human survival on his shoulders. The truth about galactic civilization had been revealed, but it might have come too late. "Options?" he asked. "We fight, but we're one world against machines that have controlled the galaxy for millions of years." Or, Admiral Yujin's next words changed the course of human history. "Or we contact the other human worlds. If the architect records are true, there are human civilizations out there far more advanced than us. Some of them might have the power to fight these machines. How do we reach them? We use humanity's greatest strength, the thing that makes us different from every other galactic species. Which is, we innovate. We find solutions no one else can imagine, and we do it fast." President Inho looked around the emergency meeting room. Human faces stared back at him, filled with determination despite the impossible odds. "Then let's show the galaxy what isolated human development can really achieve." The race against time had begun. Humanity had 6 days to contact other human worlds, form an alliance across multiple galaxies, and prepare to fight machines that had controlled civilizations for millions of years. But they were no longer the isolated species the architects had created. They were about to become something else entirely, something that would change the universe forever.